Ọ̀gá Muhammadu.
Good day.
Hello.
Yeah, good day.
How una dey?
Alhamdulillah. How's it going?
Na only you waka come?
Yes. Now.
Oh. Ọ̀gá o. Ọ̀gá o. Well, I thought it was communicated to everybody that we have an extra class.
Communicated. Right.
So what do you suggest we do now?
We wait for
Migo?
we found out on the group.
Ọ̀gá o.
And perhaps maybe your team can call everybody since they are not used to it.
Okay. Even the messages sent to WhatsApp are not being read.
Maybe they forget.
Ọ̀gá.
I say team management.
Okay, let's just wait for 20 minutes and start by 2:30. If by 2:30 we don't see anybody, any other person, I don't know.
And I think we have
Me go.
we are now two. We are now two. Miss Oluwase has joined.
You said
Miss Oluwase has joined.
okay, she has joined.
Yes, I have
Oh.
joined.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Aha, madam, good afternoon.
Sir, I was in class before. Yeah, host had not started this meeting, so I went back out.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, sir.
So we have Ajani and Madam Guru left. Okay, let's just give them some little more minutes to see how far.
Hello, hello. Good day, good day, good day.
Yes, sir.
Madam Luashi, Alpha.
Fine, sir. Adequate, sir.
I guess we have to start now. We can't keep waiting. I've tried reaching out to um, both of them.
Mm,
They are not picking.
okay.
They are not here. I was just thinking that we should do an extra class today so that we can cover up. Since we
Mm,
need at least minimum of 2 extra classes to cover up.
mm.
So I'm thinking today will be at least one of them. But seems like our people have another plan for their time. So what do you suggest?
Ah.
Madam Oluwaseyi, what do you suggest?
Well, I don't know. What yeah. So if I say we go on, it's good because we are at least it was communicated that there will be class today. Okay. But the other side is if
Okay,
the class goes on, because this is just 50% of the class, there are two people that are not here. How do we manage
correct.
the gap? Except I don't know. So it's a difficult one to answer, really. Well,
Yeah,
I
but before
think
now,
the
we'll be having 1 or 2 of them missing classes now.
so I guess we just continue as planned. I don't know, Mr. Mohammed, what do you think?
Hello, Mr. Mohammed, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Since they are
What do you
communicated,
suggest?
an effort has been made to also get in touch with them, but not practical. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
faintly.
Yes,
Okay, so since that they are going to be recording, so that recording can suffice for them, so that they'll not be able to get the collaboration. And hopefully, some of them will still join us, one or two, either one or both of them will join us before the end.
yeah, that's possible. So yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. In progress. In progress. Class in progress. Sorry. Class. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So last class, where did we stop? We stopped at integration, integrating project planning activities. That is where we stopped. So today we continue from here. Plan and manage procurement. Okay. So we have plan and manage procurement. The goal for today, for this, say, if I let me even ask, Madam Lua should be our night class is still holding.
Our what?
Our night class is still
The
holding.
evening class today. I suppose.
Yes. Okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. So plan and manage procurement. We have 5 enablers under here. Mr. Mohammed, can you help us? Can you walk us through the enablers?
Okay, define external resource requirements and needs. communicate external resource requirements, manage suppliers and contracts, plan and manage procurement strategy, develop a delivery solution.
Okay, so do you mind justifying them one by one?
Okay, just as the pattern of every other, looking at the pattern of every other task, it's always start with defining in most cases, and defining scope, defining requirements, defining budget, defining cost. So in this case now, we need to define all the requirements and need resources that is needed. That's the first step. Then the next step is that
is needed for what?
To be procured for the project. The needed resources and requirements need to be defined. Once it is defined,
why do they have to be defined?
Because if we don't define them, we'll not be able to actually act accordingly. So I don't go and procure B instead of C, or we go and procure a smaller quantity instead of a larger quantity. And looking at size, looking at all the things that have to do with procurement, and even currency, because when we are going to get it, we want to determine the currency, and even the schedule of how soon is going to reach the location. Part of what we need to also consider, and all those things surround defining it. Because, for example, like we say we need hosting. There are some sites that require VPS hosting, while some require normal shared hosting. But without defining them, they will just get any hosting because we didn't define them clearly, which is going to cause issues. And that is where we have project management to make sure that everything is structured.
Okay, the next one.
The next one is for those requirements and that we don't have in-house, we need to communicate it, like contacting the vendors to let them know that this is what we need. Do you have it? These are specifications. Can you give us a test? And all those data we plan, we enhance our planning. And of course, maybe for example, even the logistic of carrying them also be considered. Maybe if the truck is going out to carry resources A, we also take resources B because they are not in the same environment. Then, of course, we also consider things that surround it to avoid waste, looking at the moral of, okay, we are taking 2 trucks, who is going to offload it? And those that are going to offload it, if it's too much, it will cause a delay. If people that are going to upload are not enough, they are going to be overburdened. Stuff like that. Then manage suppliers and contracts. Looking at getting different people that will deliver different items. Or even if you have, then when it comes to contracts, look at the detail of the contract so that if there is any issue, we can see it ahead. So I have a case of a very big company that it was in the contract details that if because of the resources, raw material they provided, there is a failure in the product, they are going to pay 50% back. But because they didn't read the vendor knows, but the concerned company did not even read the contract very well, or they didn't remember. It was when they now got a consultant in and now said it's going to help them make a lot of money. They now started checking their book. So checking their book only was able to enable the big company make over $3 billion just by checking their contract. And by the time they get back to the vendor told them that they are aware that it was the raw material that caused failure in the product, but because they didn't ask, so the consultant did not only teach, did not only identify the error, he also taught the company, the staff of the company, how to handle such cases in the future. In fact, the name of the person was his name is Shobri. I can't remember his name, but he wrote this book, Ice Cream Maker. He's very top level person when it comes to quality assurance. Then the third one, plan and manage procurement strategy. Of course, I know that in procurement, we usually have what we call in negotiate. It has to do with negotiation.
You only have what they call what?
Negotiation strategies. I've forgotten the English. Is it partner?
I'm listening.
That okay? This is how much. I think it's partner. This is how much you budget. This is how much
BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Yeah. So that in fact, there is one deal I went for. I think I told you about the deal like more than 13 months ago. I already have my second whatever plan. Once I got there, the person changed the strategy. I was thinking about negotiating in one of the guy changed the strategy to we share profit, we share money based on inflow. And I didn't have that plan at all. But I did think I'm aware of this before, I'll have considered the possible strategy you would have considered, and I'll be able to plan for it. And because I did plan for it, because anybody that controls the conversation wins the game. But of course, the deal went wet because I was able to an extent cover up accordingly. Then develop a delivery solution. This one, well, depending on the type of items to be procured, to determine the delivery solution. Is it that it's going to be, is it cloud based? Do we need to use truck to get the delivery? If it is maybe something like crude oil or petrol, do we need to also put system in place to ensure that on the road some of the items are not missing, among other things that surround the delivery, just to make sure that we don't do all the initial first stage, they're coming to delivery, there is issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have given a very detailed explanation. Okay, let's proceed. When you are talking of procurement, in fact, sorry, I made a very funny error. Mr. Mohammed, did you read schedule and quality management?
I watched video.
Hello, Mr. Mohammed.
About quality.
Sorry, did you watch quality management?
I watched video about quality management. Yes, I watched quality management and schedule management to a very large extent.
Tell me some things about what you
read. When it comes to quality management, it's one of those key things that I can never forget because I have a practical experience. It's cost of quality. Because that slide was very insightful, talking about making sure that we put the necessary system in place to ensure that quality is monitored and quality is met. And of course, trying to do that during the quality audit, it costs us some level of money. And trying to also validate the quality is met and make sure all the requirements, the resources are used. Necessary resources are used. It actually costs a lot of money, but cost as a cost, but those costs are better incurred than having a substandard end product, just because quality steps are not taken accordingly. Cost of quality is very great, and I know how many millions I lose last year, and I'm even trying to actually cover a lot of mess now to ensure that a particular deal I did is resuscitated, so I can be able to, of course, get my money back, looking at the lifetime value of the concerned customers. So it's very insightful about quality aspects, very insightful. So that is the key thing I was able to learn in under quality.
Thank you very much. Madam Luashe, yeah, I'll tell us what did you learn from what you read?
What did I learn from?
Yes, now did you read through the scope and the quality?
Yes, I did. I read through schedule and quality. No, not read through.
What
I
did
listened to
what
the
did you make
video.
out of it? What yes, I know, I understand.
Uh, so just a few things from. Let me start with quality. So the conversation around quality being cooked in and not sprayed on. So the quality management actually um, should be woven and fabricated into the project from the very beginning. And the goal, the end is so that there will be no it's not like a first time right. No deviation from customer requirements, and if there are any, it is cheaper and safer to find them out from a continuous assessment and improvement of the systems that create the deliverables and the outcome. So it's quality all along the way. Quality, you think quality when you're making the plan. So as you're drawing together all the various management plans, you are building quality into the plan. And even when the work starts and you are in the phase of direct and managed project work, you are also managing quality alongside. You are checking processes to be sure that the process is solid enough to deliver deliverables and outcomes or products according to customer specification or requirements. And in the monitoring and controlling phase, you are also checking the attributes of the product to ensure that even though the process is fine, you're also checking to be sure that the product also has the attributes are in line with customer requirements. But even though the managed quality knowledge area looks to ensuring quality is embedded all across the relevant checks of the system of the product, the most cost effective is still to have as much as possible very low cost of conformance and probably no cost of non-conformance at all. So that would be my take out on quality. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
I hear you.
Oh, okay, you can.
He was using two devices before. Maybe he's trying to come up with to enable the second device, like the second device has.
Hello?
I said he's using two devices before. So maybe the other device has issue. I'm trying to bring it back.
Yeah, I'm back now, sorry. Hello?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Sir. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
is my audio back?
I finished on quality. I don't know how much of that you heard.
Yeah, the audio is back.
Yeah, I had like up to a short while ago.
Okay.
Okay.
So
How about
that was my
stakeholder? Sorry, how about schedule?
schedule. Okay, so for me, I was able to glean a very succinct difference. If you remember, there was a day I can't remember which question you asked, and I was talking about activities, and I talked about work packages and activities,
Yes, correct.
and you corrected me. So that day, I didn't say anything, but in my mind, I was like, okay, I thought that activity was the last line of breaking down of work packages. But going through schedule, I understood that activity um, is not like schedule activity from the knowledge area schedule. So work packages is the how do I put it? When you decompose your scope in your WBS, what you have finally at the least breakout of project work that you can have is called work packages.
Okay.
But then when you want to schedule, the first step after you have planned your schedule management to give you the schedule management plan, the first step is to define activities, which are the actions that will be taken to carry out the work captured in the work packages. So it became very succinct for me where activities was coming from. Then logically, after you have defined activities as to the actions that will be taken to deliver work packages, you sequence them. And the reason for sequencing is very how do I put it? Is very simple. You sequence to establish the order so that you know what should come first. You know the predecessor activity and the successor activity. And after sequencing, you then estimate activity duration basis activities that have been prioritized in order of sequence, after which you develop project schedule. Now, in the developing of the project schedule, I went over forward pass, backward pass, and it became even more, it became clearer for me. It became clearer. I could relate more with it. I struggled with it a while, during my first coming, but now I understand it to a very large extent.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Madam Oluwaseyi. Okay, so let's proceed with our plan and manage procurement. I think we have explained earlier that when you say procurement, you're referring to bringing things in from outside, bringing resources, human, blah, 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 from outside. That's what we refer as procurement. Whatever you need that you need to bring in from outside the team, that's what we regarded as procurement. So there are different procurement strategies. You have the option of making what you need, buying what you need, renting what you need, leasing what you need. You have multiple options, and the project manager at any point in time is supposed to be able to make the best decision in the interest of the project about which strategy to use. So there's something we call the make or buy analysis. This is an analysis wherein you actually sit down, look at the metrics, look at the figures, look at your context to now determine that for a particular item, you want to make it or you want to buy. So that analysis is the technical form of actually doing what leads to decision, or you want to buy or you want to make. So some of the factors that you consider when you want to do make or buy is that, sometimes you want to buy something not because you can't make it, but because you don't have time. So sometimes you want to buy something not because you can't make it, but because buying a ready-made version will be cheaper than you trying to make your own. So that's what is meant by cost and time, and even quality would be factors you want to put into consideration when you want to decide to either buy or to make what you want to use. So then another factor is there an ongoing need for the skill set. For example, if you are working in an organization or you are working on a project wherein you have a specific need at the moment, not something you could be needing often. Sometimes something might be a bad decision in terms of cost, but might be in terms of short-term costing, but might be a good decision in terms of long-term
In
cost
the long run.
consideration.
Mm.
For example, yes. So at the moment now, might not be cost positive for you to be able to take that decision. But having that competency, developing that skill set might eventually be a good decision if you consider some other long-term or medium-term factors. So that's why you also need to put that into consideration. Sometimes you might have to do some things that might look like a bad decision now, but eventually be a good decision going forward. So that's why you have the point number 2 saying, is there an ongoing need for the specific skill set? And then how steep is the learning curve? If the learning curve is very, very steep, don't 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 slow down the project by trying to make. If you know that learning curve is steep, just go and get a ready-made one, or rent or lease. So are required resources available within the organization? That's another very important factor. You have the option of of renting or buying a tractor, or you could couple your own tractor. And then if you want to couple your own tractor, you have to ship in parts from Germany, ship some in from Turkey, ship some in from the US or something. So these are factors you need to put into consideration when you want to determine whether you want to buy or you want to make. There's something called the procurement SOW, statement of work. We know our normal SOW, the conventional SOW, we know that one. In this case now, this is now the normal SOW, but this time about procurement matters alone. So it describes the procurement item in sufficient detail to allow the seller to determine if they are capable of providing the product, the service, or the result. So see this more of as an input into your contract document, into writing your contract document. So you write your procurement statement of work to serve as an over the top, well, maybe not over the top, in some cases might be detailed, well, sufficient detail, that's what is most important. So that has sufficient information about the procurement, the item that is to be procured. So it is distributed to potential vendors to evaluate their capability to perform the work or provide the services. It serves as a basis to develop the procurement documents during the solicitation process. Okay, please note that point number 2. I mentioned it earlier. I said your procurement statement of work serves as an important input into writing your contract. So that's what is reiterated in point number 2. So a project scope baseline is used to create the procurement SOW, statement of work. Why? Simply because your project scope baseline contains your project scope, contains your work breakdown structure, and other documents. It is from all those project documents that you're able to come to an understanding of what exactly do we need, how do we need it, when do we need it, and many more things like that. That's what will now determine what you will put in your procurement statement of work to serve as guidance for people who want to bid for whatever you want. So you have something called your procurement management plan. Just like every other plan, it's just a document that contains a lot of how, what, how will things be done, what metrics, how will they be managed, how will they be controlled, how will they be evaluated, how, guiding principles, guiding, different things that will guide your procurement process throughout the project. So your procurement management plan is a component of the project or program management plan that describes how a project team will acquire goods and services from outside the performing organization. So in your procurement management plan, you're talking about what type of contracts will be used, what process of obtaining and evaluating bids. Okay, how would you mandate that standardize the procurement documents that must be used, describe how multiple providers will be managed. So if you look at all of these items, essentially they are describing some criteria or information that would be of use later on in the project while you are managing or while you are doing procurement matters. So source selection criteria. When you say procurement, it means you are bringing something in from external sources, from outside the project team. Okay, so if you want to get something from outside the team, if you want to bring something from outside the team, multiple people will be applying. So the question is, when people have applied, how do you select? When different bids have come in, how do you select? So your source selection criteria are a set of attributes desired by the buyer, which a seller is required to meet or exceed. The seller is supposed to meet or exceed these attributes for the seller to be selected. So we have quite a number of things here. Let me just mention some of them. Technical capability. That's the most obvious. You want to select somebody who has a technical capability. Then you have financial capacity. Madam Oluwashiri, why do we have financial capacity here?
Financial capacity. So it's in two ways. I think basically it's a description of how stable the supplier to be is in terms of their, I'm looking for the word, not cost base. So this is, let me try and explain what I'm trying to say. A good number of times, depending on how the organization works and what their financial processes are, they pay after delivery of services. So the supplier should be able to source for funds and not hold the project work or the request of the organization. Yeah, so that's one reason why the buyer should have some level of financial base or capacity. Then two, because it depends. After a while, depending on how the organization works, suppliers are seen as partners. So the company expects that because you are partners in business, you should be able to also order raw materials on behalf of the company and hold some stock as buffer, not hand to mouth, in case in case the request increases. So in a short while, the supplier in this case has the muscle to step up to the needs of the business. So those are two that I can readily think of. I'm sure that there probably will be many.
Solid. Thank you very much, Madam Oluwashiri. So for just like that, you should be able to justify every other item, because a lot of very, very wicked scenario-based questions can be wound around all of these items. Proprietary rights. You wouldn't want to bring a seller on board who does not have proprietary rights to the tools, techniques, technology that is coming to deploy. Intellectual property rights, similar to proprietary rights, Then past performance of sellers, that's another very major one. That's why you find out that a lot of times people are asking you for your profile, They're asking you for your past jobs plus they call this what they call this letter post project no is it post project completion document sign off. Yes, well, different names, different places. Sometimes some people call it sign off letter, people call it project completion letter, blah blah blah, such that it's not just about saying you did this project for this person. They want to see proof that somebody in that organization actually wrote a letter saying you did it well and you finished well. You know, so all of these things, depending on the kind of project and is it kind of project or even kind of clients, especially when you're dealing with multinationals, they don't usually want to deal with small businesses. Madam Luashi, sorry. They don't usually want to deal with small businesses. They don't want to take on any risk at all.
At all.
They
At
want to
all.
deal with big. They already have a track record. Okay. They always forget that the big organizations, they were also small at some point.
I'll be at some point.
Anyway. So it's understandable, no? For them, risk for a small risk could mean $10 million for the multinational. If you make one small mistake, circumstances are less forgiving for them. So they don't want to play around, you know. So it's quite understandable. It's quite understandable. Okay, let's move on. So you have qualified vendors. So qualified vendors are those ones that have been subjected to your selection criteria, and then you've succeeded, you know. So vendors that are approved to deliver products, services, or results based on procurement requirements identified for a project. So the list of qualified vendors can be created. It can be created based on historical information about different vendors. There's something we call the pre-selected vendors, pre-selected sellers. Sometimes we have a
pre-sellers list, something like that.
No, pre-selected. I think it's pre-selected something. Pre-selected sellers, pre-selected vendors, something like that. But essentially, what it just means is that you, in some very structured organizations, the way they do is that it's not they don't qualify vendors for a project. The organization itself already has a procurement process where
vendors that supply people. Correct.
Yes. Approved vendors.
That's what happens in my office.
So if there's a project, they mandate the project manager. Yes. They mandate the project manager to pick from that list. Yes. So those ones would have been screened, vetted for. So, and even that list, girl, you have in some places you have to apply to remain on that list every year with money. Some people do it every 4 years, some 3 years, some every year. You know. So, and usually those who do these things, as a result of trying to put in some very stringent quality control, or that's more of quality assurance process. So most of the time, that process takes time. That process of vetting a client, a customer, or vetting a vendor, sometimes it takes time, sometimes it's expensive. So it cannot afford to be doing that for every project because delay on the project. That's the reason why they just want to do it outside of the project. And then when you need a vendor, you just go and pick from the list. So in this case now, that list will be part of the OPs of the organization. So you as project manager, just leverage on that list to be able to get your vendors to use for your project. Okay, so if the required resources are not new, and if they are new to the organization, market research can help identify qualified resources. Okay, so this is just an example of, it's called qualified vendors list here. This is just an example. Your company A has this expertise, has this capacity, has this staff strength, then a description of the reputation, and then references. So that's that. Bidders conference. That's one interesting thing that unfortunately I'm still yet to experience it real life in its real form. So bidders conference, the way it works is a particular company wants to hire some contractors, vendors, and then they call everybody to a particular place physically at the same time, giving everybody the same information. Why is this done? It is done because in contracting, information is power. They want to ensure fair play by giving everybody the same information at the same time. So buyers ensure that all the vendors have a clear and common, note the word common understanding of the technical and contractual requirements of the procurement. So it's also called vendors conference, bidders conference, pre-bid conference, pre-proposal conference, or contractors conference. Even though I remember saying this thing sometime and then somebody said, nah, lie, this is just theory. The fact that you give them information together in the same place does not mean that somebody somewhere cannot go and give somebody extra information. I said that one is not ethical.
That's true.
That's what the person said.
Yeah, but it's not ethical.
Of course, it's not ethical. It's bad. If you hear what people do, one of the dirtiest departments or units in most organizations is their procurement.
It's procurement.
Unimaginable things going on. Unimaginable. Unimaginable things going on. You find people of procurement, they are very wealthy. They have so much money because they have their ways of always cutting corners. You see, when it's not, you don't have to bribe. You don't even have to collect bribe. The fact that you're in procurement, information, giving information. I've had a case in which I wanted to bid. I had a close oga was working in a particular place, and the person said he wants to remove the proposal of somebody, change the front cover into another person. I was like, oh God, this is high level high level fraud. Somebody else's proposal. Verbatim, you're not typing it in. The same thing that the person. So since that time, when I'm submitting proposal, I will heavily brand all the pages.
And now all the pages.
I will brand all the pages. so that this nonsense will not be happening. So much goes on when it comes to procurement. So you have to be careful. Anyway, external resource requirements and needs. Moving beyond the organization to secure services and expertise from outside sources on short-term basis, on contract basis. Frequently, it helps businesses to focus more on their core competence. In terms of productivity, one of those things that stands the productive people apart from the non-productive people is that they're able to effectively or appropriately appraise their context, appraise what is best done by them, what is best done by someone else. Just like I remember speaking with somebody recently, and the person said, what the person saying? Like, Microsoft Word can also be used to design table, but you must be able to know when to use Microsoft Word to design table and when to move to Excel. So that's a very interesting parable to be able to understand that the fact that you have a competency does not mean you deploy that competency all the time. There are certain times in which, for strategic reasons, you want to outsource. So, and one of the reasons for organizations usually is that it makes more sense sometimes to just focus on their core competencies and let somebody else come and handle some other forms of
the extra
activities. Yeah. So, communication, a critical component of procurement is communication. And of course, remember, I've mentioned it several times that a lot of what we are discussing, knowledge area, blah, 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 they are interrelated. It's not like you are doing one, once you finish it, that's when you now come and do the rest. No, it doesn't work like that. These things are interrelated. Like in this case now, we are talking of procurement, and now we are talking of communication. Why? Simply because you cannot handle procurement matters without having to deal with communication. Because communication itself can dabaru your procurement. Huh? So critical components, okay, the communication plan should include provision for working with vendors. By the time you are planning procurement, by the time you are handling procurement, you definitely need to, you can't do procurement independent of communication. You can't do procurement independent of your resource management. So when you are drafting how you want to manage communication on the project, you definitely want to put in periodic, getting periodic reports about the activities of your vendors, advanced notification of potential supplier cost overrun or schedule delay, and acknowledgement by the project manager to the supplier. Formal acceptance by the project manager's supplier, by project manager of supplier's contract deliverables. So supplier and contract, there are three major types of contracts. You have the fixed price contract, you have the cost reimbursable contract, and you have the time and material. If you check the procurement, um, module in the LMS, we've explained all these types of contracts in detail. We've explained them in detail. We just touch on them briefly in class. So the components of the contract, this is important that you know the components of the contract. It's important that you know the components of the contract. The reason why you need to know the components of the contract is that we all draft contracts one way or the other. But the reason why most of us are very poor in drafting contracts is that most of us have really never had a legal case in relation to contracts. If you have those who have gotten their fingers burnt by not explicitly, describing some things, you know that some people have a PhD in
picking up holes.
loophole. Exactly. A lot of, like, if you look at this election tribunal, blah blah blah, there are many cases in which even the judge will know that this person not being human. But yes, but legal matters are not, they are not emotional matters. You have to be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So that even if you are wrong, if you cannot, if they cannot prove that you are wrong, then you are right.
That's it.
You know, that kind of thing. Exactly. So you just have to, and the reason and that's why you find out that a lot of organizations will not joke with their legal departments. Any writing, any corporate communication, any this, any that, would always pass through the legal department. Because if you are not careful, one small ambiguity can cost you millions of dollars in legal fees, in being sued, in court cases. Even if you eventually win court cases, a court case might distract you for months, if not years, might incur a lot of cost in incur a lot of cost in going to court, getting lawyers, blah blah blah. So it's just best that you master the art of writing a contract very, very well. So here is an overview of the items here. Description of work being procured. What are the deliverables? What is the scope? Remember, when you are talking of scope, you want to describe what is in and what is out. So delivery date and schedule information. Identification of authority where appropriate. Management of technical and business aspects. Price and payment terms. Provision of termination. Applicable guarantees and warranties. This is a very important set of guidelines.
Sorry, I have a question,
the
sir.
Point. Oh yeah, quickly, please.
On identification of authority, what does that mean?
Okay. Authority in the sense that, for example, you go into contract with someone who can alter the
who is eligible to stand on behalf of the company, you mean?
Exactly. These are examples of what we mean by authority.
Clear.
For example, the fact that I'm going to contract the organization, does it mean anybody can give me instruction?
Yeah.
Does it mean, you understand? For example, I was late last year, I started the particular contract consulting thing with Lagos State government. At the meeting, we had an inaugural meeting and everybody was asking for my number. I said, no, I can't give everybody my number. I cannot. It's going to cause confusion when everybody can call and say, change this, add this. No. Within yourselves, within the team, let there be one main point person. Let
Point of contact.
Communication come through one person.
Come through that
Not
person.
that different people are calling me. I saw this thing you have done. I like it. What if you change? I don't want that. And it's as a result of a bitter experience with the previous project, in which you are just, everybody has your number, you're accessible to everybody. And then before you know it, you're having problems in tracking issues. Where did this come from? Of course, there's a traceability matrix to it, but the simpler the communication channel,
the better.
The easier, the less the headache that you have to deal with, So that's that. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we said we have three major types of contract. They are different. Under all of these three, there are more like fixed price. Fixed price contract is I don't know if it's correct to say it's the most common form of contract in which this is what we want to do. Clearly stated out. This is the amount we want to collect. Clearly stated out. That's fixed price contract. It's called lump sum contract. Defined scope, defined cost. You understand? So there are some variants to this too. Variants in the form of you could have sometimes you want to put in a clause such that we can give you incentive if you perform better than expected, even though at the core it is still a fixed price contract. That's a variant. Another variant is there's fixed price, yes, but we want to put a clause such that we can vary the price with exchange rates or economic condition, maybe inflation, exchange rate, blah blah blah. But at the core, it's still a fixed price contract. So those are just some variations of fixed price contract. So who bears the burden? Who has more risk in a fixed price contract? How do you determine risk? You ask yourself, okay, the seller, the buyer. Buyer is saying, go and get this work done. I'm going to pay you 12 million. Okay. Seller has agreed to collect 12 million. Whatever the seller encounters in the course of doing the job, it's none of the business of the buyer. Your own is you have agreed to collect 12 million. I'll give you 12 million. So if at the end of the day, you now realize that you made some mistakes in your quotation, some things you did not do this, it's none of your business. Let me give you an example. 2019, there was this project we did with National Library. That project, there was some other people who got it, and then they involved us, they involved my firm somewhere along the line. Those who got it, they made the mistake of not involving consultants who understood the job. The job was given to somebody as a favor. Wait, just make some money from it. And the person wanted to do a good job. Unfortunately, when drafting the scope of the project, the person was over-describing, adding. At the end of the day, the money for the project could barely finish the project. Unfortunately, it wasn't easy for the DG to increase the amount of the project. It was not easy for him. So at the end of the day, you are now doing a government job as though it's a personal job. What I mean by personal job is just do it to get the work done and then some little token on top of it. But you know the way they do government job now? Do a job of 10 million, charge 100 million. That's the way you do government job. But in this one, in fact, if I tell you how much I was paid, you'll be shocked. I was paid 750,000 for a job that when we started January, we finished December 2019. We started January, we finished December. So you can imagine, but what do? So I'm just saying that fixed price contracts could be a hell for the seller,
For
if
the seller,
the
yeah.
vendor, if you don't price well.
Mm.
If you don't price well, it will be here. So the fixed price contract is used largely for projects in which at least there's clarity in terms of scope, there's clarity in terms of
But I have a question. So even though it's fixed, is fixed price, but is it not a function of scope?
Yes, the scope will have been given to you now. You will have said this is how much I will collect.
So, but if that means if
Don't get
scope changes, there is ground for
no, of course, definitely.
negotiation.
If scope changes, of
Okay.
course, yes, negotiation, correct. If scope changes, definitely there's a ground for negotiation. Okay, so now you now have cost reimbursable. Cost reimbursable is usually used in the consulting industry. Well, consulting and in some form of services too, wherein they're going to reimburse your cost and then give you some form of either honorarium or consulting fee or whatever service charge on top of it. So that's cost reimbursable. This kind of contract pays the vendor, does not pay the buyer. And that's the reason why you hardly find organizations using this kind of contract without a lot of checks and balances. Because what this means in its purest form is that whatever receipt you bring to me, I will refund it. Whatever receipt you bring to me, I will refund it. Whatever receipt you bring to me, I will refund it. You understand? So cost reimbursable. All your costs will be reimbursed. And then on top, you now collect your own service fee, service charge, consulting fee, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I now realize that in the real world, most of the time, they will have pegged some things. They will have put some pegs on top of it. So cost reimbursable is a contract involving payments to the seller for the seller's actual cost. The reason why cost reimbursable is bad market to the buyer is that there is no incentive for the seller to control costs, because you know that this particular thing, if you spend 1 million, they will refund it. If you spend 100,000, they will refund it. But if you were to be fixed price, you want to control costs such that you want to reduce the cost, because you know that if you reduce the cost, you have more profit margin. If you have too much cost, it chops your profit margin. But a cost reimbursable, either you spend high, you spend low, to be refunded to you. So there is no incentive to control cost. That's the reason why in this one, the risk is more to the buyer. Then you have time and material. Time and material is like something per unit cost. Maybe 100,000 per square meter, something per yard, something per day, that kind of thing. So it's a type of contract where that's a hybrid contract arrangement containing aspects of both fixed price and cost reimbursable. So you are combining a form of negotiated hourly rates and full reimbursement for materials. So it includes not to exceed values and time limits to prevent unlimited cost growth. It is suited for projects when a precise statement of work cannot be quickly described. So fixed price is used largely for projects in which the scope is clear. It can be easily quantified. The vendor can easily say this is how much it will cost me. Cost reimbursable is used usually in areas in which it might not be so clear. You're trying to do some costing as you move. So the vendor is avoiding a situation whereby you want to say a specific cost, that how much it will take. So in that case, you want to use cost reimbursable. So that's just that. Let's move on. So delivery solution. The goal of procurement is the delivery of the procured goods or services by the supplier. That's the goal. So you have different phases: planning and analysis, detailed design, implementation or installation, testing, training, handover, support, and maintenance. All of these things are different like phases in procurement. So controlled procurement, of course, you'd agree that it's not just about starting procurement. You also want to ensure that your vendor is supplying what they should supply, the right quality, the right quantity at the right time. So controlled procurement process is the process of managing procurement, managing the relationships, monitoring contract performance, making changes to the contract. Yes, sometimes you can also have to modify your contract, but please note that contracts cannot be modified unilaterally. If you have to modify contract, then it must be that both parties agree. Yeah. So you can make changes to your contract. You can make corrections as appropriate, and then you close out your contract. Okay. So other processes applied to contract relationships include project plan execution to formally sanction the seller's work at the end of the time, performance reporting to monitor sellers' cost, schedule, technical performance, quality control to ensure that the quality of the seller's product or service meets the agreed objectives in the contract. Then change control if you need to change some things, and then you monitor and control project risk to ensure that your risks are properly managed. Okay, contract change control system. Just as I explained earlier, your contract too can change, but of course, mutually. And for improper project management systems, your just like your normal change, how you manage change normally on a project, in which you can't just unilaterally change anything. Even as project manager, you cannot unilaterally change anything. You cannot unilaterally change something that will affect your baselines. So for that reason, you also cannot unilaterally change your contracts. There has to be an established change control system in place. Okay, if you want to change someone in meeting, this and this and this must agree, blah, blah, blah. So you need to have a change control system in place. Just as you have in place for the project, you also want to have in place for the contracts. So it is usually, or well, might be a component of the main project change control system. And in some cases, it might be a separate system, not necessarily part of the main project change control system. It is specifically dedicated to controlling changes in contracts. It specifies the process by which project contract changes can be made. It includes documentation and dispute response processes. Note, documentation of the project, of the contract, dispute response processes, and appropriate levels of to authorize changes to contract specification. Okay. Mr. Muhammad, are you there? Hello, Mr. Muhammad. Hello, Mr. Muhammad, are you there?
Okay, I just enabled
in class now we have Mr. Toya Ajani. Yeah, he's ill, but he still managed to come. Mr. Toya Ajani, how do you do? Are you feeling better now? Okay. Anyway, Mr. Muhammad, can you proceed? Can you read these things to us? I want us to have an idea of different types of contract changes. Okay, Mr. Toya Ajani, welcome. How do you do now?
Fine, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Should I tell people the truth? Yes. Should I tell the people the truth about your illness? Awelungu Baba. Awengu Baba, Baba Bedaku. Anyway, so don't mind Madam Oluwaseyi. She's supposed to have sent us a picnic for you to get stronger.
It's true.
She no give us picnic.
I said you should send that.
All right, thank you very much.
Send address.
Okay, Oga Momo, yeah, proceed.
Yes.
Send address. Address go hit you shortly, don't worry.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Oga Momo, quickly. Oh yeah, add it to us.
Types of contract changes.
Okay.
We have administrative changes, non-substantive changes, which are the most common
Substantive. Yeah.
Non-substantive changes. Non-substantive changes, which are the most common changes to the way the contract is administered.
Okay.
Contract modification. A
Sorry,
substantive.
sir. Can we ask as you go? What does that mean?
Substantive means administrative, small,
Just
small
minor.
things. Yes, you understand. Some small, for example, typographical error now,
Okay.
you might not want to summon the whole change control system to correct the typographical error.
Okay.
You understand? That's just one example I have in my mind about administrative changes.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay, contract modification. A substantive change to the contract requirements, such as a new deadline or a change to the product requirements. Supplemental agreement, an additional agreement related to the contract but negotiated separately. Constructive changes.
Okay.
Changes that the buyer may have caused through action or inaction. What does it mean?
Okay.
Termination of contract. A contract may be terminated due to the vendor default or for customer convenience. Defaults are due to non-performance, such as late deliveries and poor quality, or non-performance of some or all project requirements.
Okay, you were asking a question under changes that buyers may have caused through action or inaction. You see, sometimes when they categorize things like this, you could be having cases of overlap. Changes that buyers may have caused through action or inaction. Let me give you an example. The contract says you're supposed to make payments, second tranche of payments, supposed to come by a particular time. If the buyer does not make the payments, Mr. Mohammed, don't you think that would trigger a change in the contract?
It will trigger it.
Because you have commitment that is tied to receiving money. So if the money does not come, what do you do? That's what you can do. Well, except you want to go ahead, I don't know. So that's just one example I have off my head now about what fits this kind of description. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so sorry, as a follow-up to that question, just thinking.
Okay.
So if the two things, number one, also depends on how the contract was set up. So if I look at my organization, for instance, so if there is a full contract sum, so the vendor sends a quotation for the full sum or a cost estimate that is approved and put in the system. Okay. So when the agreed time for payment comes, it is the duty of the vendor to raise an invoice equivalent to what should be paid at that time.
Yes.
So if the invoice, so the conversation is, did the invoice come and it was not treated, or the invoice did not come at all?
Well, what if it came and then?
So I'm just trying to respond to what you said about.
Delay payment too.
Sorry? Okay. Yes, they do. So now, in a case
proceed.
where maybe communication has been made, yes, in a case where communication has been made to explain that there will be a delay and things like that, does it suffice? Does it help in any way?
The fact that
payment to be made, though, but just an official communication to say, okay. So to the seller.
You see, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What we are seeing here is that if you have an obligation to do or be to make,
yes,
or to carry out,
yes,
if you don't carry out your obligation, it can lead to the counterpart obligation on the other person to also have to be modified.
Can't hear you again, Sal.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
You can hear,
Madam
you can-
Oluwaseyi, we are using Sheyitel network. Hello.
I think so. Yes, it's better now.
I said if a particular obligation from your side is not met,
Hmm.
you might not be able to blame the other party who also has commitments that are tied to that expecting or the expected obligation. Let me give you an example. I'm supposed to submit a proposal to someone. I was supposed to submit a proposal to somebody yesterday, or a concept note
Okay.
with some over-the-top pricing. The person was supposed to make something. The person is yet to make the clarification. So the person cannot hold me saying I am defaulting on my promise to submit a document because you have not done your own commitment. So that's what is meant by saying actions or inactions on the side of the buyer and even of the seller could also trigger some changes in the contract.
Okay.
So,
Right.
so you cannot. The importance of making this clarification is that it might be misunderstood to say contract cannot change unilaterally. You cannot unilaterally change the contract. Yes, either party cannot unilaterally change the contract, but actions and inactions on both sides can trigger a change in the contract. But it's not arbitrary, even if it will trigger a change. It has to be, there has to be some basis that have already been agreed to in the contract.
Okay.
So legal terms when managing disputes, warranty, you know what it means now. Waiver. Warranty means that within this period, if something happens, I take care of it, that kind of thing. Waiver means that you are giving up a right, giving up of a contract right, even inadvertently. Unknowingly, inadvertently. I be waiting be inadvertently. Inadvertently. They're not unknowingly. Yes, now accidentally. Can you issue a waiver accidentally? That's interesting. I can't explain that. Even inadvertently. Okay, let's put that one in the cooler. Then breach of contracts. If somebody fails to do something they're supposed to do. Then cease and desist letter. These are legal terminologies. A letter that is sent to an individual or a business to stop any form of illegal activity and do not undertake them again. This is usually a form of warning about an impending legal action if it is ignored. We hear these terminologies in the news a lot. Okay, so Mr. Mohammed, help us again. Guidelines for handling this quickly.
Have a good understanding of the differences between important legal terms that can, if ignored, have a significant impact on the project, like warranty, waiver, and breach of contract. Be sure to consult with somebody in your company's legal department or seek advice from an outside legal expert so you thoroughly understand any contract that affects your project. If your contract isn't written specifically to exclude inadvertent waivers, avoid doing any of the following that would waive your contract rights. Accept a product that fails to meet standard for quality or performance. Accept late deliveries. An aspect of non-conformance and contractual obligations.
Mr. Mohammed, do you now understand what we mean by inadvertent waiver? Interesting. This thing you have read has even made me understand it a lot better. Do you understand the legal implication of if I give you a faulty deliverable, you accept it, you don't complain? Does that? Do you know I can use that to prove in court that you are happy with it?
Yes.
Legal matters are very complicated. So this is an example of what is meant by inadvertent waiver. So you don't know. For example, if you accept late deliveries, it might have some legal implications that you accepted it. You know, just like when they say they want to serve you court paper, why people run away? Because they know that accepting the court paper, you are already liable. I assume, I'm not a lawyer. I assume that you're already liable to the terms of acceptance, collection, and blah, 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 whatever you have to say. I would have loved Mr. Koyajani to explain, but I will go, Baba, don't let us disturb him, because I know that he will have some more explanation about it. He's more legally vast than I have. Anyway, and then here, Mr. Mohammed, take note of that last point. Overlooking an aspect of non-conformance to contractual obligations. If you overlook it, that you're overlooking it might come back to bite you if you're not careful. These are just examples of what we mean by inadvertent waivers. Okay, closing procurement. A written notice usually provided from the buyer to the seller once the contract is completed. I once had a problem with this in the past. I wanted to do a project for somebody, for a firm, and they asked for my sign-off document for my past project. And then I didn't need to collect. You know, the way we finish project is pay my balance, okay? Do last demo. Pay my once you are okay, pay my balance, and we move. But since that time that person asked this question, I've been a lot more cautious. You know, you want to have a document that says that you are done. The document that says, okay, the procurement is complete, is successful, and you are happy with what I've done. You know, so that's that. So guidelines to close procurement is a long list. I always do this stuff. So guidelines for managing suppliers and contracts. This is important. Madam Oluwaseyi, you read this to us already. Auntie, wake up. Madam Oluwaseyi.
Sir. Sir.
Yeah, read this.
I was on mute. Okay, guidelines to manage suppliers and contracts. Index and store all contracts correspondence for ease of retrieval. Develop and implement an effective contract change control system. Evaluate the risk of each contract change request. Document all contract changes and incorporate any effects of the changes into the project plan. Develop and implement an effective performance reporting system for the seller. In the contract, specify any performance reporting specifications to be imposed on the seller. Then set performance milestones to monitor project progress. Then if work is performed at another site, conduct site visits to determine how the seller's work is progressing. And submit approved invoices for payment in accordance with the contract and the project payment system.
Interesting. Okay. So at this point, I've come to the end of that process or that task. Now, let's discuss a new task or a new topic. A new topic here. Establish project governance structure. Mr. Mohammed, when you hear governance, what comes to your mind? Governance.
I think it has to do with how, like administration, management, control.
Correct. Administration, control. Correct. Yeah, walk us through this enablers, please.
Determine appropriate governance for a project. Define escalation paths and thresholds.
Interesting. We are justified for each of them.
determine appropriate governance for a project has to do with who are the stakeholders and how will authority be cascaded. Then also we also look at the organizational structure. Is it a functional organization? Is it a functional? We look at the organizational structure.
Okay.
And look at how that determines the level of authority the project manager has. Also try to identify the relevant stakeholders, and that will determine the approach to using the project.
Okay. Okay.
And the second enabler, define escalation path and threshold. It's also connected to the first because now that we identified the stakeholder, we know the governor, we know the structure being used. Is it a functional position? Is it a matrix position? Is it a PMO office? That will determine how issues be escalated. That is the part. Then the threshold, what type of issue is escalated to consigned
Noise coming from your side, Mr. Mono.
Sorry, what?
I said there's noise coming from your side. Yeah, proceed. Proceed. Okay. There was noise from your side.
For the threshold, then how level of matters that will be taken to different stakeholders based on how the priority based on the nature of the matter. Let me put it that way. I'm done.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct. Very correct. It's for example now, it's not all matters that should be reported to the MD. You know, just like I remember Madam Oluwaseyi mentioning something that there are some systems they want to change that the ED will have to be there. There are some systems you want to change that that kind of thing. So there are escalation paths and there are thresholds. You need to say, okay, when something reaches the blue level, this is how you escalate. If something reaches red, red level, this is how you escalate. And these things go a long way in showing a lot of clarity into how projects are managed. Because as much as possible, we want people to understand the difference in circumstances. All circumstances are not handled the same way. So they must be able to evaluate and say, okay, this particular circumstance, this is the start of some circumstance. This is how it should be evaluated and escalated. So you have your deliverables, you have your tools here and there. So let's start with project governance itself. What do we mean when we say project governance? Just like you have explained, governance essentially is the framework, the functions, the processes that guide project management activities in order to create a unique product, service, or result to meet whatever goals you had, operational goals, strategic goals, organizational goals. So the goal is you want to meet the idea is you want to meet your goals. How do you meet your goals? There needs to be a framework, some form of administrative system, functions, processes that guide all what you are doing towards meeting your goals, your organizational goals, your strategic goals, your operational goals. Okay? Madam Lubumi is interested.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, all.
Yeah.
So sorry, I apologize. I actually forgot that class is starting by 2 today.
Your apology is partially accepted.
Question, please.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Toyi, please proceed.
Yes. The previous slide said it's a process that guides, but from the word governance, I was expecting something like from the word governance. I was expecting something like processes that control. I mean, like it's governance. I think it should be more than guide. It should it's a bit soft for what governance should be.
Okay. Okay. I think that makes sense. That makes sense. Maybe guide is a bit soft. I agree. Well, this is an official definition for PMI. So let's see.
All right.
But what you said makes sense. I think I agree with what you have just said. So that's that. Or maybe we can now say,
right,
in the context of project governance now, there are more, it's more of like something that guides.
Right.
It's trying to be very good.
Okay.
But you get the idea. That's what
Yeah,
is important,
yeah.
irrespective of whether they use a strong word or a weak word.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was about asking Madam Olubumi I was about giving her a punishment for coming late. I said she's partially pardoned. So she's supposed to, we are sentencing her to reading 5 slides to us. So Madam, please proceed with slide number 1.
Project governance
Madam
framework.
Olubumi. Yeah.
Project governance framework.
Oh, yes. Now listening.
As stated in the PM BOK guide.
Yeah.
Project. Oh, sorry. Project success and deliverable acceptance criteria.
Madam Bumi, are you sure we are together?
Oh, sorry.
It's like you're on another planet too.
Oh, sorry. Components of the framework can include 1.
Okay.
Project success and deliverable acceptance criteria. 2. Process to identify, escalate, and resolve issues.
Okay.
Relationship between project team, organizational groups, and external stakeholders.
Okay.
Project organization charts with project rules. Communication processes and procedures.
Okay.
Processes for project decision making.
Okay.
Guidelines for aligning project governance and organizational strategy.
Okay.
Project life cycle approach.
Life cycle approach. Okay. Wait, before you go on, do you know what we mean by life cycle approach?
I think this has to do with the different type of life cycle approaches that we have when as to carrying out any project.
Yeah.
Those life cycle like predictive, adaptive. You know, under adaptive we have agile, we have increment, we have iterative, and we also have hybrid. But I think maybe those are the approaches that is being referred to here.
Correct. Please proceed.
Okay. Process for stage gates or phase reviews.
Do you know what stage gates mean?
I don't have an idea, sir.
So stage gate essentially means that if you're okay, but you know phase review. You know what phase review means?
Not really, sir.
A phase review.
Phase review could be maybe if you are maybe on a particular phase of a project, and then you want to move to the next phase, you have to review the things that have been done.
Just like what we used to call our sprint review in Agile.
Yeah.
They also call them. They also call it stage gate.
Okay.
So please proceed.
Okay. Process for review and approval of changes above the project manager's authority.
Can you explain that?
Process for review and approval of changes. Okay, I think what they are trying to say here is maybe you have any changes that need to be done on a project, and there is need for them to review that changes, and is also calling for an approval. And it seems that the approval is above the project manager's authority. So I think that's where this comes under the governance framework, where you need to review those changes that are above the project manager's authority.
Okay, well, you are correct. The issue here is that there needs to be, if you look, remember the enablers, there should be a clear escalation path.
Yes.
And at no point should you say, I don't even know who to talk to. There should have been a framework that would have guided you to say, okay,
yes.
If this thing needs to be done, talk to this person. Someone in
yes.
of ABCDE to do this.
Yes, at least there would have been a framework that would tell maybe the project manager or the team members who to talk to.
Exactly.
Yes, when any changes arise, or maybe there's need for anything to be done at that particular time.
Correct. So the last one.
Process to align internal stakeholders with project process requirements.
Internal stakeholders. Who are your internal stakeholders?
Internal stakeholders should be maybe one, the project sponsor.
Okay, yes.
Could be, you can say maybe the functional manager too can be part of the stakeholders.
Okay.
Even the team members too can also be part of stakeholders because they also have a say.
Of course they are.
Yeah. Since we're talking of internal, I think it has to do with everybody that is involved in that project.
No.
Okay.
How can you say everybody?
Yeah, because the reason why I said everybody is this. Even to the least person on that project also have a say. They can all the least person on the project can also be affected. Sir?
When you don't forget that you also have external stakeholders.
Yeah, but here we are talking about internal stakeholders.
Yes. Are vendors internal stakeholders?
Vendors cannot be. No.
Okay. That's correct. That's correct. But wait, what if it is a member of the team that is doing PP?
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, you don't have instances of somebody within the team. Don't let me confuse you. I beg, vendors and vendors.
Yeah, I know.
So, that's that. Okay.
Okay, I have a question, please. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, quickly.
There's an issue. There's something I see about aligning the organizational strategy with project. What's it called now? With the project, can you just aligning the project governance and organizational strategy? I see that as a very difficult task.
Why?
How do you achieve that?
It's easy now.
Yes.
What this is saying, leave out all the big words. What is just telling you essentially is that let it not be that what the project is doing or how the project is run is different from or it conflicts
with the organization
ideals of the main organization that the project is running for.
Yes, but there are situations where it will be in conflict.
And so the question is,
How do you
how do you
address it?
align it?
Okay.
How do you align it? That's your work as project manager. You have to be able to align it. You understand? For example, you have an organizational strategy that says that all teams must have more than one gender. You understand? So,
Okay.
so in fact, there's an organization that will say there must always be, the board must always have more than one gender. It must never be all males. So you are on a project for that organization. You just have to look for a way to align. And don't forget, aligning does not necessarily mean you would achieve it all the time. What it means is that all the time you would make steps towards achieving it.
Okay.
I don't know if you understand what I just said.
Okay.
Aligning
Doesn't mean
that
compliance.
it doesn't always mean compliance. What it means is that at every point in time, you are always making moves towards compliance.
Yeah. Explain.
So that addresses one thing you said, that sometimes contextual circumstances of something might make it difficult to get exact compliance. So, but because you want to align, you now need to look for ways around it. Not just to say you don't care. Not just say you don't care. Nah, you must care. You must care. Because you must always be able to defend whatever you are doing at any point in time. Not just heedless.
Yeah.
So project phases, what are project phases? Sometimes you want to split a project into multiple phases. This is in the normal predictive model anyway. But I know it doesn't even predictive model say. Even in agile, you can split into phases, and then in each phase you can now have sprints. These are just administrative things. One of the reasons why you might want to split into phases is what? Funding. It's funding. Look at the Lagos Kano of Lagos Kaduna Rail. They have split into pieces because of funding and many other reasons. There could be skill set reasons for splitting into pieces. There could be many, but they are all administrative, resource reasons, funding reasons. They are all administrative reasons why you want to split into pieces. So a collection of logically related project activities that culminates into a completion of one or more deliverables. It produces one or more deliverables, can be performed sequentially or overlap. Output from one piece are generally inputs into other project pieces. Yep. So applying governance to project lifecycle. Mr. Toyajan, since you are now talking, let's hear from you. Please read this slide to us.
At the
Excuse me,
beginning of
sir.
a phase.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry for cutting you short, sir. Please, can you explain that stage gate?
Stage gate is when you have projects that have been divided into chunks. Manage the relationship between each chunk. At that point, in which you want to transition from one chunk into the other chunk. It's called a stage gate.
Okay.
You understand? At that point, you want to transition from one chunk to the next chunk, from one phase to another phase, from one stage to another stage. And I gave the similitude of your sprint review. Technically, one sprint to another sprint is from one chunk to another chunk. You want to manage the transition. There should be smooth flow from one to one. Either they are done sequentially or there is a form of overlap. In fact, when there's overlap, that's when you need to manage in a more delicate way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
At the beginning of a phase, verify and validate. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
And validate the formal assumptions made to the project, analyze risk, and provide detailed explanation of the phases deliverables.
Yes.
After the phases key deliverables are produced, a review ensures completeness and acceptance. A phase can be closed or the project terminated when huge risks are involved for the project or when the objectives are no longer required.
Very correct. Thank you very much. So, Madam Olubumi, here's your phase gate. Stage gate, phase gate. It's a review
Okay.
at the end of a phase in which a decision is to be made. Should we continue to the next phase? Should we modify, or should we shake in?
Okay.
Because at the end of the phase, you can redo your feasibility to find out that it seems like the business case for this project is no longer valid. For example, now, those who wanted to set up a rice mill when they shut the border to rice importation, I'm not sure they want to proceed. I don't know. I'm not a businessman in that line. I don't know. But the strength of the business case early last year or late 2 years ago, when the border closure was still very, very hot, you can't compare to it now. The profitability you calculate then is different from now. So by the time you do your math, you say, I bet there's no point continuing. Boom, you can cut at the phase gate. In fact, you can even terminate in the middle of a phase, because if there's need for it. You know? So another name, they call it governance gate, they call it toll gate, they call it kill point. So this is used to check if the next phase, if the current phase has fulfilled what's supposed to be, and if you have gotten to the exit criteria, and then you're eligible to move on to the next phase. So software development projects usually use a specialized form of phase gate called a quality gate. So that's that. So face-to-face relationship, sometimes it could be sequential. In some other cases, it could be overlapping. Overlapping is madder. It's madder to manage. It's madder to manage. So you have to really be on top of circumstances to be able to manage overlapping cases. Okay, Madam Uluwaseyi, something tells me you have slept. We're about
that was not clear. What did you say?
Slide. Somebody go on.
Sorry, what did you say?
Read the slide to us, ma.
Okay, well, guidelines to determine appropriate governance for a project. Involve the organization's decision managers, who are frequently its senior managers. Choose the most appropriate governance goals and tries to keep them simple. Select a group of experienced individuals to be responsible for all governance activities.
Okay.
Practice governance for projects, for programs, and for portfolios.
Yes, you get better at it.
Keep the governance process transparent to the project stakeholders. Then remember
this is
that
very important point. Very important point. Transparency. Because if there's no transparency, why have a lot of people lost credibility at work? Why have a lot of bosses lost integrity? Simply because look at today now, Nigeria today now. You say know me, I know you, I so laughing back here and all of things like that. It's because there's no transparency in governance process. Sorry for cutting you. Proceed, please.
No worries. Remember that governance is an evolutionary process, and take advantage of the lessons you have learned during it.
What do you mean when you say evolutionary process? Summarily, what it means is that don't be rigid.
What is the what? Sorry.
Don't be rigid.
Okay.
You understand? Don't be rigid. Put your ears on the ground and learn.
On the ground.
If the answer to a question is A in the morning, by afternoon it might become C. Because of what? Lessons learned. So it evolves. It evolves. Market condition, stakeholder reaction, circumstances of the team, and many, many other factors can make your governance approach to change as you work on the project. All right, thank you very much. We have gone, how long now? We've gone like 2 hours without break. Yeah, let's do 15-minute break now.
Yeah, sure.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yep. Back. Aha. So, Mr. Mohammed, are you there? Gatoya Jani. Did you? Madam Olubumi, how market? You should be able to finish this session. We'll wait till 5. You should be able to finish in 15 minutes time. So rest. We'll rest very well. Gatoya Jani will go and take his drugs. Okay. I hope we all know that there's still class tonight too. Mr. Muhammad, you did it? Mr. Muhammad, are you there? Oh. Okay. All right. Madam Luashi, now only you are coming.
This class ends by 5, right, sir?
It's supposed to
Now,
end
so
by 5.
they will join and so. This one will end by 5, right?
It's supposed to end by 5, but we'll end earlier. My target is to end in 15 minutes time.
So evening, okay, evening will still be 7:30, right?
7:30, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
7:30, yes. Oga Muhammad, why is your video doing dakudaji? Wetin be that for your hand? It's looking like biscuits. When you are hungry, everything looks like biscuits. Anyway, where are we? Plan and manage project phase closure. Projects, you want to manage project closure, you want to manage phase closure. Okay. Madam Olubumi, walk us through these enablers.
Okay, sir. Enablers. 1, determine criteria to successfully close the project or phase.
Okay.
2, develop transition planning artifacts. 3, validate readiness for transition, e.g., to operations team or next phase.
Okay.
Lastly, conclude activities to close out project or phase.
Beautiful. Yeah, go back and justify them one by one.
Okay. To determine criteria to successfully close the project or phase.
Okay.
What they are trying to say here is, being able to establish the guidelines or the standard that involves in closing a project or phase successfully.
Okay.
And then developing the transition planning artifacts. Artifact could be model or diagrams that we already have in place.
Okay.
And then here developing.
No, not that you have in place. So artifacts are usually outputs of work. What you do, documents you create. You understand?
Okay. So those documents, you need to develop them by
Yes.
because of the changes. You need to develop those documents. And then after that, you now validate the readiness for your transition.
Okay.
And then you conclude activities to close out the project or phase.
Okay, thank you very much. So here are our deliverables, and they said no to at this moment. So close project or phase. What do we mean when we say close project or phase? There are many things important here. You want to understand the fact that the work that you said you want to do has been done. The scope has been covered. At this point in time, all necessary information, either for the whole project if you are closing the project, or for a phase if you are closing a phase, the information there has been archived. All your lessons learned, you have bundled everything together, boom, push into your archive, into your lessons learned repository. And then the project team resources are being released to pursue other endeavors. Team resources, both human and material. The tractor that you that you leased or that you lent, sorry, that you borrowed, you have gone to return them, all of things like that. So, close project or phase criteria. What exactly is the criteria for which you close project or phase? Madam Olubumi, please proceed to explain this thing to us.
Okay, close project or phase criteria. One, any one of the following events can result to closure.
Okay.
We have some bullet point under that. The project or phase successfully met its completion objectives.
Okay.
2, the requirements changed during execution to the point where the project is no longer feasible.
Okay.
3, adequate funding is no longer available to complete the requirements.
Okay.
4, significant risks are encountered that make the successful completion of the project impossible.
Okay.
5, the organization no longer needs the project deliverables. Then the second point is external factors arise that do away with the need for the project. Examples of these factors include: 1, change in laws or regulations, merge or acquisition that affects the organization, global or national economic changes.
Can you give me an example of global or national economic change that would affect national economic change that would affect or that will make you want to close a project?
I may want to make you close a project.
Yes.
Global or national economic changes. I'm thinking. Can we say this COVID? Can COVID be?
Of course it is. Of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. A lot of projects had to be abandoned midway because okay, fine. Look at, is it every kind of project that you can do with Zoom and you can do with remote
No.
when it's not software project? Abi, I don't know, Madam Olubumi, you know you told me you are an engineer. Is there any
Yes, sir.
machine that can make you build a road with remote technology?
No, sir. Mhm.
Well, me, I don't know if there is such a technology. So definitely, of course, that is one of the factors that can make you have to, stop. Look at changing laws in regulation. A regulation can come out now banning a key ingredient of what you want to do. That will automatically mean you have to stop that project, for example.
Mm.
Thank you very much. So part of what you're also doing here is that you are closing procurement. So procurements are closed when contract terms of a procurement have been satisfied by both the buyer and the seller. This occurs throughout the life of a project, not only during project closure. That's a very important point. You are not closing your procurement only during project closure. As at if it is during planning that you use a particular vendor and the particular vendor has finished his work, you have to close procurement at that point. You don't now say, okay, wait till the end of the whole project before you can now start discussing procurement, closing procurement for that vendor. That is not appropriate. Okay. So contracts are not kept open any longer. Contracts are not kept open any longer than necessary to avoid erroneous or unintentional changes against the contract. All right. Okay. Acceptance criteria. We have heard this terminology numerous times in this training. Mr. Mohammed, can you guide us? What do we mean when we say acceptance criteria? Mr. Mohammed, are you with us?
Is it based on what is in the slide?
Yes.
From my experience. Based on the slide.
This slide, yes.
Okay.
Yoga.
Set of conditions that is required to be met before deliverables are accepted, which entails project deliverables are deemed accepted when certain acceptance criteria have been met. These criteria generally refer to some or all requirements that were established at the beginning of the project and which might have been modified during the project life cycle. Deliverables that meet this expectation acceptance criteria are formally signed off and approved by the customer or sponsor.
Okay. 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 So payments. When you say payment, summarily, you're talking of money. Don't delay payment for people. If somebody finishes work, you don't have to wait till the end of the project to be able to make your payment. Make your payment once the person has finished his work. Knowledge management. Madam Oluwaseyi, do you remember manage project knowledge that is under integration management? Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
What about it?
So because when the project work is being done, knowledge is generated. So that particular process covers capturing knowledge that is generated in the course of the project, so that it's added to the repository of knowledge for the business, and it can be an input or a support other projects, kind of, that will come after it. So
But what you have just said now is not complete. When you are
it's not
managing
complete.
knowledge, that's not the only thing you are managing. You are not only managing the knowledge that you are creating, or the new knowledge you are facing or you are
Yes.
seeing.
So you also use knowledge that has been gleaned from past projects.
Existing knowledge, yes.
Yes.
Correct.
So you use that, then you generate more knowledge, and then you also document for future use.
So there were two terminologies that we used to call knowledge. 2 types of knowledge. What are they?
Yeah. Tacit and
What are they? I'm asking question.
I think I'm answering you. Tacit and explicit
Tacit and
also. Can you hear me? Tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge.
No, tacit. Explicit is not push. I've forgotten. Explicit. Is it explicit?
Come on with tacit then. I think it's explicit.
Explicit.
Yeah.
Okay. Sapamilori, I can't remember. Anyway, thank you very much. So,
Yes,
transition planning artifacts. So, coordination and strategy about how to best deliver and transition the product and other deliverables is needed. Releasing and deploying deliverables in the most suitable manner. Ensures that the end users, they are aware, ensures end user awareness, and increases proper usages and adoption of outputs. It's not just about saying you are done. You also have to hand over well. See, the handing over is key. Sometimes the way you hand over determines whether the project will succeed or fail, or whether the outcome of the project will succeed or fail. You need to hand over properly. And they are saying handing over properly does what? It ensures user awareness, increases proper usage and adoption of your outputs. So what are some of those things that you do to ensure what are some of those things you do to ensure that we are transitioning well? Training, documentation, communication, support. All of these things anyway, they are not necessarily part of the project though. Not necessarily part of the project. You will support and sing, that's operations work, not part of the project. So transition readiness, Mr. Mohammed, you should be able to explain this beautifully. Hello, Mr. Mohammed, can you proceed, please?
Okay. Releasing.
Mr. Mohammadu.
Yes, I'm here. Releasing, delivering.
Please proceed.
Releasing, delivering, and deploying the project work into an environment that is not ready will negate its value.
Okay.
Project team must examine the readiness of all parties and prepare them for delivery, including end users, the business, the physical resources, the project team. Most critical in situations where there is an upgrade or improvement to an existing product or service. Assesses the readiness of all parties, implements the transition plans accordingly, and capture lessons learned from next phase of projects.
Correct. So lessons learned register. Of course, by now I believe we all understand lessons learned register. We've come across it several times. So it's a project document used to record knowledge gained during a project, so that it can be used on the project and it can be used for future projects. You agree with me that sometimes the lessons you learn on a project are not necessarily only useful for future projects. They are useful even for the project itself. So considerations: scheduling lessons learned, conflict management lessons learned, sellers lessons learned. Yes, when you're on a project, you can learn lessons in how to deal with your vendors. You can learn some lessons you want to document about how you deal with your vendors. Customer lessons learned. Yes, the sponsor, for example, he delays your money, you can put it there. Whatever strategy you use eventually made him release the money. Maybe you have to do a subtle threat or blackmail, put it in the document. The next time organization wants to deal with this particular person, this is how you go. If you want your money to come out on time, put it there, Strategic lessons learned, tactical, operational lessons learned, and any other aspect of lessons. I like the way they have broken these things down, because it's like when you sit down to want to document what you have learned, most of the time we hardly do them well. Most of the time, maybe you will do one and you will not do the rest. You will remember one, you will not remember to document the rest. But by the time you have this list to say, okay, In terms of scheduling, what lessons have I learned? In terms of conflict management, what lessons have I learned? In terms of this, what lessons have I learned? In terms of that, what lessons have I learned? So it makes you more detailed in the way you actually document your lessons learned. So close out meetings. Of course, you agree with me that you can't just finish the work and everybody will disperse like that. You can't just finish the work and everybody will disperse like that. You necessarily want, sit down, review, just like we do in our post-sprint review. You sit down, you discuss, you review, and all of that. So you see, I was just talking about sprint review and then retrospective. At the end of the sprint, you want to do evaluation, what has worked, what is good, what is bad, what can we improve, how can the next one be better, blah, 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 blah. So guidelines to closing a project of phase. Madam Olubumi, can you help us with this?
Okay. Guidelines to close a project or phase. 1, review the project management plan. 2,
okay.
If applicable, use a project termination checklist. 3,
Do you know what that
gather
means?
an project termination checklist. I think it's
Yes, you
like
do. It's just a case of I'm listening.
It's like like a form where you have to tick, okay, this has been done, that has been done,
Exactly.
and it is okay for us to terminate this project or to
There's
close
a
the
book
project.
I want you to read. I forgot the name of the book. Checklist something. I forgot the name of the book. That book is just one of those books, all these productivity people that they throw around. You should have the attitude of always using checklists. The less you depend on your memory, the more structured you would become. The less you depend on having to remember things, the more structured you would become. And that book, oh my God, I'm so surprised I forgot because I read the book, I still read it recently. That they tell you that a lot of cases in the past, medical issues, these issues, that they were able to drop the mortality rate, clinical rates, simply because they started using checklists. Just like you go to Madam Olubumi, I'm sure you understand, when you fly around, when you're going to your UK. I remember maybe like how many years ago, the first time I flew in an airplane was 2012. Yes, I was going from Lagos to Kaduna or something, I can't remember. So that first time, you know the way they do all those things inside the plane now, listen to the clinical, you know those madams now, they now stand in your front. Yeah, the airbag, ensure you don't inflate it when you're in the aircraft. That first day, I was paying attention. I was shocked. You understand? But the next time, I did not really pay so much attention. Listening by and I'm like, me okay. Hey, you already way poor. What do you mean? You understand? I don't even pay attention to those. And I keep asking myself, why do they keep doing these things? Maybe I have been flying a lot. It doesn't make sense to me. But in every flight, there is possibility that there is somebody that this is the first time. So they need to be saying it all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. So you get a pilot, despite having years of experience, will never fly a plane without going through a checklist. Confirm that the clinical knob is up. Confirmed. Confirm that the clinical knob is down. Confirmed. Confirm that the is down. Confirmed. Confirm that the fuel level of the flight is this. Confirmed. Confirm that it's confirmed. Before they will fly every aircraft. Why? Structures, systems. Think in systems. Be more structured in what you do. Thank you very much. You have come to the end of Sunday A class. For Sunday class A. By 7:30, we will start Sunday class B. Finally, we have finished lesson 2. Lesson 2 is the biggest lesson. It took us a lot of time. Lesson 3, lesson 4, finish those ones fast. But lesson 2 is where the core operational, the core project management is going to be. In fact, lesson 2 is almost equal to the old syllabus. Old syllabus, a lot of it is what you have in lesson 2. Lesson 2 and lesson 3. But lesson 2 has the core. All what you have in lesson 2 are process. In lesson 3, you have some process and you have some people. Lesson 4 is strictly business environment. So thank you very much, my people. See you in how many hours time? 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 3 hours time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
When
Bye-bye.
you write that book, send the name to us.
Oh, I would. I have it on my script. I'll look for it. Enjoy yourselves.